They said she was a fraud, a con artist wearing stolen valor on her skin. Security guards had her in handcuffs at the entrance of the Naval Heritage Museum, her wrists bound behind her back as curious onlookers pulled out their phones. But then a voice cut through the chaos like a knife through water. "Release her, immediately." The crowd parted, and an admiral in full-dress uniform stepped forward, his eyes locked on the tattoo barely visible beneath her sleeve. "That marking," he said, his voice trembling, "is not for pretenders. Let me take you back 3 hours earlier. Emma Clarke stood in her small apartment in San Diego, staring at the invitation in her hands. The Naval Heritage Museum was hosting a special exhibition honoring female veterans, and somehow her name had ended up on the guest list. She hadn't asked to be invited. In fact, she'd spent the last 2 years trying to disappear. At 28 years old, Emma looked nothing like the decorated petty officer she'd once been. Gone was the sharp uniform and the confident stride. Now she wore oversized hoodies and kept her head down. The tattoo on her left shoulder, an intricate compass rose with coordinates that only a handful of people would recognize, stayed hidden beneath layers of fabric and shame. "You should go," her therapist had said during their last session. "Reconnecting with that part of yourself might help." But Emma wasn't sure she wanted to reconnect. Not after what happened on that rescue mission. Not after she'd failed to save everyone. Still, something pulled her toward the museum that afternoon. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the hope that she could stand in a room full of her former life and feel nothing. Prove to herself she'd moved on. The museum was crowded when she arrived. Veterans in uniform mingled with civilians, all admiring displays of naval history. Emma kept to the edges, her hands in her pockets, her tattoo safely concealed. That's when she heard the commotion. Near the Medal of Honor display. A group of older veterans had gathered around a young man in his early 20s, wearing a Navy SEAL shirt and spinning tailies of classified missions. Emma recognized the lies immediately. The terminology was wrong. The timelines didn't match. He was a fake, someone pretending to be what he'd never earned. "You're disrespecting everyone who actually served," one veteran said. His face red with anger. The young man got defensive, loud. Security was called. And in the chaos, someone pointed at Emma. "Her too! Look at her shoulder when she moved. She's got a trident tattoo. She's probably another faker." Emma's blood ran cold. She'd shifted her bag, and her sleeve had written up just enough to reveal a glimpse of ink. Not a trident, but close enough to catch attention. Before she could explain, security guards approached her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." "There's been a misunderstanding," Emma started. But the crowd was already murmuring, already judging. One guard, young and overzealous, grabbed her arm roughly. "We've had enough stolen valor for one day. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "I'm not pretending to be anything," Emma said. Her voice steadied despite her racing heart, but when she tried to pull away, to show them her military ID that she still carried in her wallet, the guard interpreted it as resistance. Within seconds, her hands were cuffed behind her back. The crowd had grown. Phones were out. Emma felt the familiar panic rising, the same feeling she'd had in the dark water 2 years ago, trying desperately to reach the trapped sailors before the compartment flooded completely. She'd saved 3 that day, lost 2, and earned the coordinates tattooed on her shoulder, marking the exact location where she'd made the hardest choice of her life. "Please," she whispered, not to the guards, but to herself. "Not here. Don't break down here." That's when she heard the voice. "Release her. Immediately." The authority in those words cut through everything. The crowd parted, and Rear Admiral James Morrison stepped into the circle. His dress whites immaculate, his face a mixture of disbelief and something that looked like pain. "Sir, this woman was identified as potentially misrepresenting," the guard began. "I said release her." The Admiral's voice was quiet now, but it carried the weight of 4 decades of service. The handcuffs came off. Emma rubbed her wrists, her eyes down. Admiral Morrison stepped closer. "May I?" he asked, Gesturing to her shoulder, Emma hesitated, then nodded. She pulled her sleeve up, revealing the full tattoo. The compass rose, the coordinates, and beneath it, words so small most people missed them, for the two I couldn't bring home. The Admiral's eyes filled with tears. 33.7490 north, 118.3720 west. He read the coordinates aloud. The USS Guardian Rescue Mission. October 2023. The crowd went silent. I was the commanding officer, Morrison said, his voice breaking. This woman dove into a flooding compartment in the middle of a storm. She stayed down there for 18 minutes, 17 minutes longer than any safety protocol allows. She brought out 3 sailors alive. He turned to the crowd. 2 didn't make it, and she has carried that weight ever since. He looked back at Emma. That tattoo was designed by the families of all 5 sailors. Only those 5, and those who tried to save them, carry that mark. It's not regulation. It's not official. It's a promise. A remembrance. Emma felt something crack open in her chest. For 2 years, she'd hidden that tattoo, convinced it marked her failure. But standing there, seeing the respect in the Admiral's eyes, in the eyes of the veterans around her, she understood something she'd been too broken to see. You didn't fail them, Admiral Morrison said softly. You gave everything you had. And 3 families got to hold their loved ones again because of you. Emma nodded, tears finally falling. I just wish I could have saved them all. That's what makes you a hero, he replied. Real heroes carry the weight of what they couldn't do, even while everyone else celebrates what they did. The crowd had changed. The phones that had been ready to shame were now lowered in respect. Someone started clapping. Then another. Then the room filled with applause. But Emma wasn't hearing it. She was finally hearing something else. Forgiveness. Not from others, but from herself. Sometimes our deepest wounds become our most sacred tattoos. Not the ones on our skin, but the ones on our souls. And healing begins when we stop hiding them and start honoring them. If this story touched you, leave a comment sharing what you're learning to honor rather than hide. Hit that like button and subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more narratives that remind us we're all worthy of grace. See you in the next one.